Good evening. Oh, let's see if we get some people
Hi.
coming in. Yeah, how are you doing?
Sure.
I feel
Hey
like I'm,
there. Host for us. Say
yes,
hi to let us know you're here. We're happy to see anybody that wants to come and play yet again.
yes,
Let's see what other
exactly.
crazy crap we come up with to talk about. How are
And
you doing, Iris?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. Um, it's just been a
Good.
crazy week. All kinds of weird energy out there. Hey, Deborah, how are you? Good to see you.
Hi, Deborah. Hi, sweetie. Good to see you again. Or, well, good to see your name. My chair keeps turning. My
Oh,
chair keeps turning.
that's okay. You can
I'm
spin
fighting
around
with
if
my
you
chair
want
here.
to.
That's all right.
Whee!
Exactly. My left brain's starting to go over this way. I am. It's going all the way around. So hey, I could do something from what is that movie where her head spins all the way around?
Oh yeah, The
The
Exorcist.
Shining or something?
Exorcist.
The Exorcist. Yeah. Oh, that reminds me. I need to ask you
Bacon.
about that, but that's off camera.
Oh, oh, come on, we got a minute. What's going on?
Do you do your services long distance, or do you
Yeah,
have to be present?
no, I don't have to be
Okay.
present. I
Then
worked
we
with a
will
guy
talk.
in Atlanta long distance and was like
Good. Good. I have
describing
a
his
potential.
kitchen and stuff to him and all that stuff, and he was like,
Oh,
"Holy
that
cow,
one.
yeah,
That one. Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
remote."
All right. I got a potential client. Yeah, I got a potential client for you.
Oh, cool.
Very cool.
Yeah,
So we got a few more people popping in, maybe.
maybe.
If you just now came in, come say hi in the comments section, either on Facebook or on YouTube. In the
I'm gonna,
comments section,
I'm gonna check our
say write
Facebook page.
hi, and your name will pop up. Yeah, write hi, and your name and comment will. That's how we see it. You don't have to, but if you want to, we'd love it.
Well, and we know that I
Oh,
just saw Facebook's working, and we know YouTube's working because Deborah's on YouTube. So, welcome, welcome.
yep,
Yeah, and
yep.
and like Margot said, comment, say hello, ask questions, make suggestions. Hello, Lisa. Um, so, but let us know you're here. That's always good to know who's here. And tonight we're sad to report that our guest couldn't make it. Life happens, and well, so we understand
We
that.
wish
Yeah, but
and we wish Courtney the best.
yes,
Yeah,
Courtney Leigh Hudson, and she is just such a sweet soul, and
very wise.
very wise,
Yeah.
very interesting. She's a musician, and then she knows all this spiritual stuff that we're going to be talking about. And so she did a lot of research and pulled some information together. And we've got that information that we're going to share with you. And we got some fun stuff to share too. And I mean, not that her stuff isn't fun, but I mean, her stuff gets down to the nitty gritty. I don't mean that. So what are we? Hello, Angela.
Hey, Angela.
Yeah, so tonight's program is about indigo, crystal, and rainbow children. We're going to focus mostly on the indigo and crystal, but and adults. And
Yeah.
what does all that mean? Because it sounds really pretty and colorful, but
But what does it mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I gotta show this. This is a good one. It's the indigo child and adult. What my friends think I do, what my parents think I do, and they got the little ring going there. What my teachers think I do, which they're 420 is a hint hint. Um,
That's marijuana. You're high doing drugs.
yeah. What society thinks I do, and it's all these people in rainbow colors doing yoga and meditating. What I think I do, and it's a couple of spirits out in the cosmos.
Floating.
And then what
Yeah.
I actually do, and it's live, love, and laugh. So I think I thought that was a good reminder that we're not all as
Perfect.
yeah, and or as different as we may think. Um,
Right.
and then sh- sh- Courtney actually sent that. I thought was funny. We're talking about rainbows and
It is.
unicorns. Unicorns aren't always
And middle
nice.
fingers. Boom.
Yeah, he's got the
Putting up the claw.
yeah. How do you
Clean
get
it up
one
just a
hook
tad.
up? But he's
That's
with it.
true. You get one little horse phalange. I don't know.
But I think he was a little bit insecure because this guy is on the psychiatrist's couch.
Couch.
Yeah, with the psychiatrist saying you need to believe in yourself.
Yourself.
So I think
Which is
all of
absolutely
those.
true.
Yes, yes. So all right, let's look at this, and I'm going between screens, so forgive me because I'm having to
You're typing.
well I'm like okay, it's hard to know that my 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 yeah, Iris, PowerPoint program is on one screen and the podcast is on another, and I try to, like, I'm watching it on the podcast and I'm there trying to manipulate my PowerPoint screen, and it's like, wait a minute, I can't do that. It's like, this is confusing.
Too much. Too much. Pull
Yes.
back. Pull back. Yeah.
Oh, God. Oh, and then
Had to
just
go there.
yeah, and then just as all the stuff's weird. But anyway, so like we said, Courtney Leigh Hudson, she's put all this together, and I'm going to back away from this on occasion, but I want to hit some stuff, and Margot just add to it.
Sure.
But she said so indigo refers to the chakras, and if everybody remembers last week we were talking about chakras. Your chakras are in the rainbow order: Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue. Indigo, which is your third eye area. And there's a reference to indigo children,
Mm-hmm.
and they there's been this period of time for like the last
Well,
50.
they
Go ahead.
started they started being born in roughly the 70s and 80s is generally when indigos were born. There are a few exceptions before and after that, but the bulk of them came in the 70s.
Yeah,
So that's about 40 years ago. Yeah.
right. um and 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 then crystals are kind of like the next step, and then
Right.
the rainbows are the more
Or the next
recent.
step after that. Right.
Right. But
Rainbows tend to be babies. Yeah.
and all of these people are serving purposes, and the indigos, from what I understand, and consulting with Margot and consulting with Courtney and doing my own reading and everything, I was born in 1960. I may have been born as a crystal, but I went through an indigo stage, very much
Mm-hmm.
fitting a lot of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like there had to be people that would kind of take up arms and, defend and get people ready for
Mm-hmm.
the awakening. And the
Uh,
crystal started planting those seeds, right?
yes, pretty much so, because the indigos were struggling with it so much that the crystals came to help because it was turning apparently too much. It was the indigos were struggling and therefore sometimes angry or addicted or sensitive or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
there is a term, by the way, that I skipped over, Iris. People like you are sometimes referred to as Indigo Scouts.
Ah.
And you can see why a scout would be called that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes I get
Yeah.
it, but yeah, crystals were born at all kinds of times as
Not to
well,
be confused with
sporadically.
Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts. This is
Right. That's a different faction.
we were scouting as in setting things up.
Setting things up for what was coming, absolutely. Edgar,
Recognizance.
yes, Edgar Casey might be classified as an indigo or a crystal, and
Okay.
he was decades before that. Yeah.
So some of the things that indicate, how do you know if you're an indigo? Indigo, first of all, you're going to have the indigo aura. You're going to glow. Not for everybody, but not everybody can see that.
It'll be it'll be a majority occurrence in your
Yeah.
aura. Now you do have other colors, but most of the time you resort back to indigo. Yeah.
Right. And then you have rage against the machine, injustice, inequality, archaic and harmful systems. It's like, this isn't right, and raise up your arms, and we have to make changes. And that's me
Right.
constantly. Although I'm mellowing. Often diagnosed with ADHD, high intelligence, but difficulty applying this in the school system.
Mm-hmm.
Sensitive to food, sounds, energy, and that can
Mm-hmm.
be, it's not just, oh, you hear a bang and you jump, but it's like,
Like certain pitches or songs will throw you off.
yeah. And you're
Mm-hmm.
often born into traumatic situations. And in talking to Courtney, she also said a lot of times you have something traumatic happen early in your life, and that could be indigo or crystal, actually.
Could be
Um,
anyone. Right.
yeah, but born in the late 70s or in the 70s most of the time. Often impatient, waiting in lines, people not being direct in communication, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Having big ideas with a lack of resources. You're more visionary than doing.
Right.
Leaders, they don't respond to threats or authoritative parenting. That was
Right.
me.
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
Fearlessness
Yep.
and big energy.
Oh yeah.
So indigos communicate from an early age about seeing, hearing, and sensing people who aren't there.
Yep.
They have precognizance, seeing the
Yes.
future.
Mm-hmm.
They see and describe auras, chakra centers, memories as having a life as an adult or another gender.
Yep.
Typically, they may have healing abilities, and they're like
Yep.
human lie detectors.
They really are. They have very strong, that's a predominant feature actually,
Yeah.
is their truth meter, their truth sensor, or their bullshit detector is another more plebeian way to say it.
Yeah. Oh, and then they also are paradigm shifters. Margot,
Yes.
do you know? Explain that one for me a little bit.
Paradigm shifters has to do with what their purpose and or mission is here on Earth.
Mm.
And what that means is they are here to shift the social paradigm of competition that we have been living in up to this point to a paradigm of coordination and cooperation versus competition of the old paradigm. So basically, the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. That's another way to describe it.
Got it. They may have a feeling of royalty. I deserve to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and or they
Entitlement.
don't feel like they fit in.
Yeah, it's weird. They have a sense of entitlement, but they're very keenly aware they don't always fit in. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And their family doesn't match their values, thinking, or beingness. They, the switched at birth. Are you a changeling? You've got to be a changeling because you just don't fit.
Was I adopted is a common question.
Yes.
Yeah.
And usually self-worth is not an issue until it is. Like if you're experience trauma or some sort of shame, or it's like you'll be going along and then all of a sudden somebody does something and you're like, oh, I'm not worthy. I don't fit in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
They have to learn the unworthiness issues. They have to learn them. They
yeah.
don't come that way. Yeah.
And it's not all rainbows for indigos, obviously. They're typically hyperactive, angry, rebellious, sticking up for the underdog, which is the thing that goes back to being against the machine, rage against the machine, basically.
Yes. And
Um,
being a healer too.
yes.
Yep.
Intolerant of bullies,
Yep.
isolation, loneliness, and depression.
Oh yeah.
Often out of sync with the majority. They don't. Again, it's all
Mm-hmm.
that not fitting in, the religion, the
Mm-hmm.
relationships, sexual orientation, political views, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's
They're radicals.
yeah,
They're viewed as social radicals. Yeah.
and they're
Not
hyper.
always. Not
Yeah,
always. No, but just generally a lot of them are. Yeah.
very self-critical.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um, and again, that goes back to the worthiness, and it's like, yeah, I'm doing a lot. I'm not even thinking about my self-worth until somebody smacks me down. Then it's like, oh, why did I make that mistake? And I can't believe I did that.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
the cyclical trauma goes
Explain that
around.
one.
That one is when and I'm gonna come out of this for just a little bit if I can get back to the screen
Sure.
and just for a few minutes, so because I don't want to be just all screen. Um
Hi,
and
Angie. Hi, Randy.
Randy says I'm the oddball in my family.
You
But
sure it's just your family, Randy? No, Randy's cool. I know I can razz him a little.
the
It's cool.
cyclical what do we call that? Cyclical
Cool trauma.
trauma. It's unless they recognize that they are like they'll have some sort of trauma happen. As an indigo, you might have, you might experience abuse or, alcoholic parents or whatever trauma could be there. And then you become
Medical trauma.
medical
Yeah.
trauma, all that stuff. And then then in the next stage, when your own children are born, you're doing the same thing, and then you're feeling guilty about that, and so it becomes a cyclical thing unless they can break it. And being
Right.
aware that which is true for just
And
about anybody, but they tend to see it more.
they're very sensitive. Another word for what you're saying is they're very sensitive to ancestral baggage.
Yes, that's a good.
And so, yeah, ancestral baggage. The baggage of your ancestors becomes your baggage, and an indigo is keen to stop that. No more. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're keen to stop that. Yeah, that's it's one of their several missions,
I've done
purposes, whatever
I've
you want
done
to call them.
a lot of work. It's fascinating the perception of the ancestors, because it's like you'll start trying to work on belief changes and things like that, and I do that a lot with the theta healing that I
Yeah,
do. And it's like,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you'll well we've got ways of figuring out, okay, is this on a genetic or a history level, or how much does it affect the ancestors, that kind of thing. And you'll
Right.
start trying to pull a belief, and it's just like really hard, and it's like I've gone, oh, holy crap, that's got to be from ancestors, and I'll meditate on it and sense the ancestors, and it's like watching a crowd of people behind me. You know what I mean? It's like turning around and seeing just all these people, and it's like, you can have
Push
these
forward.
lessons,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
I go, you can have these lessons too, and ask for divine teachings and uh, changing beliefs and that sort of thing. And then
Inspiration.
to watch
Yeah.
them all go,
Yeah.
oh, wow. It's like,
Yeah.
you actually
Yeah.
see them, go, we didn't know that. This is
Shift
okay.
in their
You're safe.
awareness. And so their vibration goes up.
Yeah. And if
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
remember,
Their vibration goes up, and sensitive people like you feel it.
yes. It is
Yeah.
just, I'm getting goosebumps now thinking about, the times that it's happened. And it's like, and then when you realize the time space thing of everything's happening at once. So it's not like they're dead. They're
Mm-mm.
somewhere else and they're getting these
Mhm.
lessons. And
In
so
real
it's
time.
in real time. And to
Yeah.
think of how that can be shifting things, and then it literally can change your genetics.
Yeah.
And even
Your DNA.
science has proven that, like, if somebody goes through a really bad trauma, that their genes will change.
Cool.
And so if
That's
you
nice.
heal that trauma, then you
Your
can,
genes heal.
yeah. And I've known people who have made things change for their children because they
Hmm.
change, they fix. It's nothing wrong with it. It's just different. They
Different.
change. Yeah. They change beliefs and do healing work on themselves. And not only are you helping ancestors, but you're helping the fruit of your loins in the future.
Current
Yeah.
people.
And to see how
Your
those,
descendants. You're helping your descendants.
yes,
Your
yes.
ancestors and your descendants.
Thank
Yeah.
you. It just, why
Hmm.
does descendants, to me at the moment, that word sounded, descendant sounds like it's beneath
Well,
descent. And it is, but it's
it
not.
is. It does descend. Well, they're talking about, yeah, when you map out a genetic family, it's grandparents, parents, children, grandchildren. So it is a downward motion on paper. On
My
paper.
brain was not
That's all
going.
right. Descendants is also the name of a popular Disney series. Yeah, it's about the children of the evil people, the evil stepmother, and yeah, the apple witch lady,
Yeah.
and some of the other evil characters that were in Disney. Their children are now teenagers, and they have their own specials on Disney. Yeah, deep state goes everywhere. remember, Disney is one of the big six that controls 90% of media.
That's,
So yeah,
yeah.
Disney's way more powerful than people know. But let's talk about the children and the Indigos. It
Yes.
sounds like you said you know of somebody, or people that did stuff that helped their children and so on. I bet you those people were Indigos or crystal Indigos and didn't know it, or didn't know that terminology,
Could
because
be.
that's what Indigos do. They change that crap for their families and for
Interesting.
society. Yeah. You don't always know that you're an indigo when you are, or a crystal. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna go full screen because it just confuses me too much. Um,
It's hard. It is hard to see if that helps.
yeah. Oh, wait a minute. I can do full screen for you, but not for me. I'm sorry. What am I doing here?
There you go.
What?
Yay! Because they need to see it.
I gotta come
They
over
need to
here.
see
Yes, you're right. That is all right. This is hard.
it. But you're royalty, honey.
Is that good enough, or do I need to go full screen on the?
I'm thinking you need to.
I can
It
do it.
wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt to go full screen. It
Okay.
wouldn't. It wouldn't hurt. It would look. It would look
Oh, no,
better.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Oh God, ours from current slide. There we go.
Take it.
Yes.
Take it. There you go. That looks great.
Okay. So, um, fearlessness in children, because indigo children are typically fearless.
Sure.
Parents that don't realize that they're raising a little indigo child get overprotective. So then they, you know, sit down, be careful, don't do this, don't do that. And they're stifling the creativity and their
You could
abilities.
get hurt. You don't know what you're doing. You're just a child.
Yes.
And they're just being helicopter. They're trying. Yeah.
Right. And then the kids start getting self-doubt and they're angry and they're
Mm-hmm.
resentful.
Oh yeah.
Um, and they've got an undeniable sense of purpose,
Mm-hmm.
which contradict family expectations. So it's like in other words, the kids will think, I need to do this. I need to help people. I need a job to do this.
Yep.
But they want to fit in. And I think I might have missed I think
What
that
would
should have had a space there. But it'll contradict their family expectations. Maybe the
right.
family has certain ideas about, I
Right.
want you to be a doctor. I want you to do this, and no, that's not what I want to do, and that
Right.
causes problems.
Right.
The kids
Which
also,
lead
go ahead.
which what you got there, it may numb themselves to do so, which leads to self-medication, addiction, suppressing emotions, and
Yeah,
all kinds of psychological or emotional trauma.
right.
Um, lower emotional IQ, they fixate at a certain age, all kinds of problems. Yeah.
And what I find interesting is it broadens the insights into why people become addicts or
Yeah.
become antisocial or whatever, because they're confused and they don't know
Right.
why they're confused. And if you think about them going to traditional psychotherapists for help,
No. Nope. You're just
that
gonna you're just gonna make them madder.
right, it's like you're trying to cram a square peg into a round hole, and it's like
Yeah.
that's and you can't get to it unless you understand
Mm-hmm.
all the
Where
woo
they're
woo that
coming
goes
from.
with it.
Right. They do much better with shamanic style therapy.
Yes.
General, not across the board. We don't mean to speak in absolutes, but we're talking about the majority. There are exceptions, but generally
Yes.
they do better with shamanic or alternative style
Yeah.
therapies. Yeah.
Um, and they have a deep empathy. Again, the Rage Against the Machine, the underdogs. So they also have this empathy, and empathy is different than sympathy.
Yes.
A lot of people don't understand the difference, but sympathy is when, oh, I feel so sorry for you, and I hate that you're having to go through that. Empathy is when you can imagine yourself in that person's shoes, or maybe you have experienced what that person has experienced.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you haven't, it's the willingness to open up your own self to feel what that other person is feeling. That's deeper than sympathy. Sympathy is just feeling sorry for somebody.
Yeah. Sympathy is feeling pity or compassion, and
Yeah.
empathy means I actually feel exactly what you feel,
Yes.
which is much more profound
Yes.
and traumatic.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there have been times where I can be very empathetic with people, but there have been times where I have told somebody, I haven't felt what you feel, but I can imagine,
Right.
or I can imagine what it would be like to feel X, and yours has got to be much worse than that, you know.
Right. Right.
Um, but
One's
yes,
compa- one's compassion, the other one's experiential.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Indigos are stuck with the experiential thing that they have to learn to move to a compassion level.
right.
And they can learn that. That's not impossible. You just have to present them with the idea and get them started that way. Yeah.
Crystal children,
Mm-hmm.
because I guess you got the indigos. The crystal children are even more sensitive to fabrics, food, sounds, movies, natural disasters. And she said 911. I think she meant 9/11 on that.
I think
Um,
so too. Yeah. No more.
but things like that were catastrophes and things like that. They're just like, and
Disasters in general, car wrecks, yeah, horror movies, or military movies. Those people, blood squirting around, or women screaming with with Jason Jason the chainsaw guy coming at them.
Yeah.
They empathize with the victims, and so it's too much. Literally, like you said in the previous slide, it literally overwhelms them, and they don't know how to control it initially as children.
Right. And even some adults, I mean, as children, they might
Right.
avoid it, but then as adults, interacting with other people, and they go to the movies with them, and then they're like, "No, I can't stand this," and they walk out, and their friends are going, "What the heck's wrong with her?"
Yes, that's the end of that first date.
Yes, exactly. Told you we should have seen a chick flick.
Julia Roberts, where are you when we need you?
Exactly. Often people will feel increased well-being in the presence of a crystal child.
Now, isn't that ironic? People often feel calm and a sense of increased well-being in their presence. We're talking about people who have profound internal trauma, yet the people around them detect calmness and well-being.
Yes.
That's just a fascinating conundrum.
Yes. But it's like they know, well, I almost imagine, the kid in the Matrix, no, there is no spoon, where
Right.
he's
Right. The little
and
kid got it. Right.
it's almost like little Buddhas, but not all. I'm just saying.
Another movie, the Sixth Sense. The little
Yeah.
boy that was talking to Bruce Willis, he was a crystal that was coming out of Indigo. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good point. They have a sense of purpose with less or no struggle to realize and activate their purpose. In other words, crystals are going to do what they're going to do without having to make that switch like indigos do of, well, I want to do this, but my parents want me to do that. They don't
Right.
have that. They're going to do it.
They experience greater grace and ease naturally.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's reports of advanced psychic gifts and abilities. I mean, they're doing the woo-woo. They're, levitation, remote viewing.
Yeah.
So, hey, kid, where'd you go? Oh, I went to go see Grandma in another lifetime.
Grandpa's right here in the room. Can't you see him? He's right beside you, talking and waving to me.
Yeah.
How'd you know I was going to do that? Well, I heard you think it, Mama.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll lay that kind of stuff on you. Yeah.
And you're going
Twilight Zone, baby, Twilight Zone.
A lot of people think crystal children have blue eyes, and that's not necessarily true. They might have a sparkle in their eye. There's just something that strikes you when you look at their eyes. They have a magnetic personality without the intimidating factor that's often associated with the big energy of indigos.
Yep.
And they're solution oriented. You don't have to point out problems. They don't have to. In other words, they see stuff and they don't have to go, "Oh, look, there's a problem. Let's find a way to fix it." They just shift and fix it.
They just go do it. Yeah.
Yeah. They're often vegan, vegetarian, animal activists. They have a real strong connection to nature.
Yep.
And as a youngster, they might prefer a liquid diet. They don't. They're not needing the routine or feeling weighed down by heavy foods because they are soul beings. I mean,
they don't particularly care for meat or sugary foods for that reason. It doesn't feel good to them. They don't enjoy it. They don't enjoy it the way previous generations did.
They might affect electronics, cause electronics to malfunction. Have you ever had somebody walk in? The radio dial goes crazy.
You're singing my whole childhood into a young adulthood here. Hell yeah. I can tell you I can tell you stories about everything you've read so far, but I want you to keep going. Keep going.
Okay, well, we'll get through this because then we want to hear the stories for sure.
Oh, I can rattle them off. Go ahead.
Um, they're often gifted in science and technology, and they look younger than their years. They're
Yep.
youth. They're
Very good.
often they're often smaller in stature than their peers. They could be shorter, taller, but they're thinner usually.
Mm-hmm.
Lower body temperature.
Mm-hmm.
Experiencing trauma can shut them down immediately. Down to the point where they're having a seizure or a blackout, or they totally withdraw.
You're describing Asperger's autistic people at that point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I was thinking about that. And a lot of children that we see as quote unquote disabled, especially the Asperger's and autistic, a lot of them are coming in as crystal children. And that's where the sensitivity comes in and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, they're
And
trying to get used to their bodies.
they're having a hard time doing it.
Yeah.
Initially. It depends on what resources come to them and what they choose. Yeah. But anyway.
And then interdimensional awareness. They may communicate about a star family or star visitor or their gods, things
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Susie
Lots
came to
of
visit.
yeah, there you go.
Parenting crystals and indigos. Parents need to be aware of communicating respectfully.
So this is advice for people who realize they're parenting a crystal or an indigo, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes. And you want to be honest.
Brutally honest. They
Yeah.
want you, not just regular honest, brutal honest.
Because if you're skirting issues, they're going to know it. And then they don't trust you.
And then they don't trust you, or they think you don't know better.
Or they think that that they've done something wrong.
They've done something wrong, right.
But don't belittle them and don't dictate to them. You can't just say, do this. Okay. And it's not saying that you've got to be one of those sappy parents. It's like, well, listen, Johnny, we're going to go get ready to take a bath so that, it's just being more
direct,
but not ordering them around. You're not going to get anywhere if you're ordering them.
Yeah,
but it doesn't mean you got to be totally like a doormat either.
It's a good example following what Iris just said. It would be, Johnny, it's 7:30 and you've got to go to school by 7 in the morning. Therefore, it's bath time. Can you start moving towards the bath right now, please?
Yes. Yes. And offer choices. Children like choices anyway, but give them options so that they're not backed into a corner.
Absolutely. You can get in the bathtub at 7:25, or you can get in at 7:27, or you can get in at 7:30. When you're in the bathtub, you can have your boat collection or your teddy bear collection or your soap bubble collection. You choose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stuff like that. You can create choices to give them a sense of autonomy. Absolutely.
Now, I remember when I was raising my kids and just hearing like some child psychologist saying, your children should have choices. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Hey, kids, you've got a choice. You can clean your room, or I'll beat your ass and you still have to clean your room. They didn't like that choice.
But you were trying, honey.
I was trying. I was like, you got a choice. Here it is. But don't do that with indigo and crystal children.
No, don't do that. They will climb out the window and say the F word and go pee on the car. Hell no, they will not do that. Yeah.
And if you hadn't figured it out, you're not
going to take a bath, then you say why. And if you already have a rapport of explaining why you want them to do something, it's 7:30, you've got school in the morning, your bedtime is at 8, it's time for you to head for the water. You've already said why. So when they say, no, I don't want to, it makes sense to say, you need to tell me why not. and the child will actually tell you because you already
Yes.
have that rapport with them. And then you
Yes.
can discuss it and talk about the finer points of stinking and not stinking, having
Uh,
rashes with stinky medicine on you or not from not being clean, etc., etc., etc.
very good. Good
Mm-hmm.
point.
But
Um,
think, a indigo child makes you think. You don't get a break right away.
no. And if you haven't figured it out yet, you're not going to force them into any activity, whether it's
Mm,
sports or family, but they got to want to do it.
right.
Co-create their discipline.
That's
Okay, so what would you have me do in this case? What did you do wrong and what do you think is justified punishment? And a lot of
well,
times they'll tell you.
they will. You start with, what do you think you did wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And let them say that. And then you go with, all right, does that warrant a punishment? Or is there some other kind of, here's where you get them into big words, some other kind of atonement you can do to make up for what you've done? And they'll come up with ways to do atonement instead of putting them in the room to sit in the corner for something they did wrong. They'll go out and clean up the yard or go clean your car or go say, I'm sorry to the little boy that they pushed off the bicycle or something like that. And they'll learn about atonement rather than punishment.
Right.
Yeah.
And they will remember their lessons better too
Mm-hmm.
because of that. And then instruct again with clear logical instructions. You might want to create a food journal because sometimes if they're sensitive to foods and that kind of thing, and you can't figure out is the food changing their attitude or
Right.
is that what's causing their upset stomach or that sort of thing, keeping a food journal will help.
Yep.
And allow for the sleep, diet, water, exercise, balance, make sure they're getting enough of all of those things.
Even if you are not.
Yes. um, and then offer outlets for their energy.
Oh,
And
yeah.
creativity is one, but you might want to be creative with the outlets that they choose.
Yes.
And so, it's not going to be, every kid's going to want to play soccer. It's going to be other stuff. If they do have ADHD, consider their diet, alternative schooling, find other outlets for them,
Yes.
um, and give them a way to express their feelings or pain or trauma, whether they need to go to a counselor or if journaling helps them or if they express it through art and music or exercise it out, whatever.
Sports or anything. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe volunteer. This is another way um of mirroring what you're expecting out of them because they do want to serve people.
Yeah, you're tapping into their natural drive to be of service,
Right. And so
which
if you
karmically is very high vibrating and spiritually beneficial for both you and the kid and the person receiving the
yeah.
service and the karma.
So
So it's a win-win. It's a win-win all around. Yeah.
right. It's a good outlet for them and they start getting ideas on their own too.
Yeah.
Um create safe space for them to decompress and get and that kind of leans towards the autistic and that sort of thing, but it's also good for other kids. There's nothing worse than having a kid that's been triggered in some way and you're
Setting
just
off
telling them
everybody else.
oh well just be quiet.
Uh-huh.
If you're in the middle of Walmart, you need to take them out to the car and let them decompress. And Walmart's overwhelming for most people.
Mhm.
There's times I want to scream and cry in the middle of Walmart. Uh,
This also allows mom and dad to decompress a little bit too.
yes.
Yes.
Have meetings to check in. Remember to treat them with respect. Normalize transparency, honesty, and mutual respect.
That right
So,
there is the most important paragraph we've seen so far.
really,
It really is. It summarizes everything from one aspect or another, but right there summarizes everything about parenting an indigo.
yeah, and it's like you gotta it makes you take time out and look and make sure everything's okay with everybody.
Yeah, and it reassures the child that you're okay too. Remember,
Yes.
they're here to take care of you too. So they also want to know you're okay, which leads to the next one.
And take care of yourself.
Yes.
And attend to your own personal trauma if it's applicable. When you have stuff happen, they're going to feel it. And if you're not
Yeah.
taking care of you, they're going to feel it. They're going to be, and they can quickly get overwhelmed worrying about you.
Yeah. And self-blaming if they don't
Yes.
understand where it's coming from. Yeah.
And express gratitude. Listen and learn from them. A lot of people think, oh, they're just a kid. These kids have something special to offer. And let them know you're learning, and then it will also teach them to teach others.
Absolutely.
And modeling behaviors that you want model those behaviors that you desire with them and with other people. Let them see you treating somebody else with respect, or let them see you asking for something nicely when you want them to ask for something, not just to them, but with other people, so that they can get that socialization type thing. Um, there is a ton of references. I just want to show you that Courtney offered us. If anybody wants these references or links,
If you want to print out or an email of these links,
I
yeah.
am happy to do that. What you need to do is
Email.
just email me, iris@iriscarter.com.
Throw that on
Okay.
the bottom of the screen once or twice. So while
Okay.
you're doing that, Angela
Yes.
Noel tells us while you're writing there, she talks about basically that she experienced this stuff herself, like when she was young, 2, 3, and 4, and probably a little older of that, about resisting, about usually ignored, the instructions of her caretakers and her family, and a lot of it is affecting how she raises her own son now. But her own son does things the indigo crystal way, is what she documents here. If you guys, some of you guys can see what she wrote, although sometimes I still have to throw in a choice, a threatening choice option sometimes. Ha ha ha. Well, of course, hon, you're human. We all are. So glad we already have the dialogue. He gives such great answers, and his teacher call him an old man. He also does the atonement comment on his own sometimes.
Oh,
He would
wow.
rather still not do what I request, but would offer to make it up another way. Hell yeah, that is a crystal indigo through and through. They really, really want to do it their own way. Even if you give them an indigo answer or solution, they want to come up with another one, and that's okay. They're very, yeah, they really, really want to run on their own power. And Angela wrote, "Yes, please." All right, Angela, write the email that's coming across the screen in just a second at the end of this line. Um, write to iris@iriscarter.com, and she will reply with all those awesome resources. And if your son's old enough, heck, let him read those resources.
Yeah.
Angela Noel, tell us how old your son is. I'm just curious, morbidly curious. And that's also a good option so that your son knows where you're coming from after you've read them. Deborah Lackey says, "How many indigo crystal children do you think there are?" Easiest way to answer that is in percentages. The number of indigos and crystals and children that have been born have increased exponentially. I believe they started earlier than the later 70s. I think they started in the early 70s. That's just my opinion. But since then, the percentage has gone up and up. And then there's also this that we haven't talked about: people who were not born indigo but have woken up into indigo and then evolved into crystal later on have also come about. since the time of their birth that are still here on Earth. So I'm taking from context your question saying how many total are there existing right now in that awareness. And in that awareness, I'd say probably 75% plus, 75 to 85% plus. How many people are indigo crystal that know it and don't know it? All of them, 100%.
Say that again. I'm kind of lost.
Because humans are natural. Okay.
Okay.
The
So
people
you're saying
that are aware that they are.
Well, you're saying 75% of the population is indigo crystal?
And aware of it on some level.
Okay, but how many, what's the percentage of the population that you think are actually
that actually know, that are actually that, but may or may not know it?
Yeah.
100%.
Everybody's?
Everybody. Everybody is some sort of indigo, crystal, or rainbow. Whether or not they know about it is the tipping point.
Wow.
Everybody's cool and awesome at that level. Everybody can do what indigos do. I would not have said I would not have said that 30 years ago. People that are not of that vibration are mostly died off. Almost all the people that are existing. When I say 100%, you know what? I need to qualify. I'd say 99.9. 99.9% of people are that, whether they're aware of it or not. Give it another 20 years, and everybody will be blatantly crystal, indigo, rainbow, octogenarian. Not octogenarian, sorry, that's an age. Octarine. Octogenarian is somebody who's 80 years old.
What's an octarine?
Wrong word. Octarine is a type of crystal. It's another crystal. It's a type of crystal child that's an evolved crystal that the molecular structure is based on the number 8. And there's other words too. Buddha babies is another word for it. But the most typical phrases are the ones that Courtney brought to you of indigo, crystal, and rainbow. Angela says he'll be 4 in April. Okay, he's not going to be reading psychological theoretical texts with you right now.
But he knows
most people think he's only mature.
He knows that term you used. That won't
Atonement.
come. Yeah.
That's all right. You need more wine there, sweetie. Pour yourself another dram.
I drank the last of what I had.
I'm sorry. Okay, at 4 years old, there are some really cool books that are designed, children's books that are designed for kids his age. And you've probably found them already because you're an indigo yourself. And so have fun with that. That's the bottom line. The more cooperative and keeping him involved in any decision, but very much so in crucial decisions, the happier both of you will be. And even traumatic situations actually turn out pretty cool, pretty fun, and just plain old interesting and fascinating instead of just traumatically suck. Okay? It changes everything. So have fun with that, Angela. That'll be neat. You know what? You and your son could write a book.
Yeah. And Deborah asked, do these children appear in all countries, societies? And well, if everybody's indigo or crystal, I guess they are in, yeah. Which, I mean, I knew they would be, but yeah, they're around the world, and it's just a matter of, and I guess it's just a matter of if they exhibit.
Culturally, right. It has to do with exhibiting, and it has to do with the local social media if they're willing to advertise it. In other words, children of India and Asian countries get more press time. You'll see more articles and historical documentation of them doing stuff like talking about past lives or being savant about numbers or math or something, or piano, musicians. prolific musicians at the age of 2 or 3 or 4. You're more likely to see that in the Eastern cultures simply because in Western culture we tend to suppress that. Not we, the media. I need to separate that. The media tends to suppress that crap, and unfortunately. And so, but the rate of occurrence, a typical resource is James Twyman, Twyman. And before she went around the twist, Doreen Virtue did a lot of indigo children research, but she's not available for that information anymore. They found out that they did international research, and they found out across the board, nationality and ethnicity had almost zero influence on the percentage of actively displaying indigos and crystals, which is really cool. Yeah, they're a very, very international group in and of themselves. I'm looking at what you wrote, and Noel says he has the behavior without knowing the word. Yep, and I'll keep you posted. Send me the names of some of those books too. Absolutely. So yeah, Noel, make sure that you email Iris because she doesn't have a way to send it to you unless you email her.
Yeah.
Protect your privacy.
And I've got to share
where I'm getting.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to share.
No, we've got a delay here. Go ahead.
I was going to share a little bit of the lighter side, just because this guy is Jake. I can't remember his last name, but it's JP. His website is Awaken with JP, and he's got some really hysterical videos. But this one I came across, and I was like, "Oh my God!" We're not going to watch the whole thing. I just want to hit a clip of it. But
as a child, I despise labels. I am an indigo child.
What does it mean to be an indigo child?
It means that I was born with a higher level of consciousness than you. I'm so conscious, I can do anything. I have special abilities. And that's also the same reason why I can't do anything. You see, to me, this world is such an unconscious place. I can't even function in it. So the fact that I'm so incapable of doing anything in this unevolved world proves how capable and evolved I am. Being an indigo also means my aura has a lot of indigo in it. You'd be able to see that if you were more conscious. You have no idea how I see this world. You might think you do, but you don't. Nobody understands me.
What are some of your abilities as an indigo child?
I'm very intuitive. In fact, I can tell you what you're thinking right now. You're thinking that I don't know what you're thinking right now. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess that's right.
Game, set, match.
What was your childhood like?
I love that
Growing
one.
up as an indigo was tough. You might think growing up in an upper middle class suburb sounds easy, but not when your exact level of consciousness isn't pampered too. I mean, you can't even imagine a tougher childhood. My parents and teachers weren't conscious enough to know how to handle me. As a kid, I was diagnosed with ADD and ADHD. I don't know what those things mean. Just never paid attention.
so if you want to see more of that, please go to YouTube. I'll try to remember to go back to YouTube and put a link to it in our own description. But
Yeah.
but his website is awakenwithjp.com. And so
He is a hysterically funny satirist.
yes.
He is awesome. He makes satire. He satirizes a lot of topics, not just woo woo, but mostly woo woo stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But he does both sides of politics and other stuff too. So it's like, he's very well rounded. It's not like he picks on particular people or has a particular viewpoint.
Sometimes he does. Yeah, right. Sometimes he does, and sometimes he doesn't. You might want to throw up Angela's comments so that all platforms can see what she said. She's reporting on what she's learned about JP, and other people can see it. JP is throwing all his resources against big tech and freedom of speech right now. He has lost a lot of sponsors.
Ooh.
Yeah, because censorship is widespread right now. And you can imagine how an indigo crystal feels about censorship. Woof.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yeah. Go,
Yeah.
JP. We love you, man. Push back against the machine. Hoorah! I'm down with that. I'm down with
Yeah.
that.
Well,
So,
share one or two of your stories real quick. I know we're running out of time, but
you want to, it helped when you were running through those bullets. Can you back up and I'll find, I don't know if you could back through some of those bullets and it comes to mind immediately and I'll summarize.
on the okay.
Can you,
I was going to throw it back up, but wait a minute.
on any of it?
I can either read it or
screen, and I'm going to tell you stuff.
No. Okay, wait a minute.
Yeah, Angela says JP even started his own connective email because he is worried about going to be blocked. Yeah, censorship is getting that watertight. That was a good move for him. Surprising that he is adept at such science and technology. Such an indigo crystal. That's quintessential for him.
Okay,
All right,
so
do you want me to pull something off of that screen?
well, wherever. I know you were really
Communicating from either one. Communicating from an early age about seeing, hearing, sensing people who aren't there. I have stories of reading people and making them uncomfortable. When I was 18 months old, I wandered out into my parents' little dinner party. My dad was a high school art teacher back in the 60s. High school art teachers invited the kids over to their house for a drink late at night on a Saturday night. And I came out and wanted to comfort this one guy who was a total stranger to me. And I was patting his heart and I kept saying, "It's okay. She didn't mean to hurt you. You'll be okay." And I was freaking him out. And his buddy sitting next to him, somebody said, "What is that about?" And his buddy said, his girlfriend just broke up with him. And so they figured out that's what I was probably talking about, even though I was less than 2 years old. Precognition. Hell yeah, I can see into the future. I've always been able to do that. Mostly it's within a few hours. I can see what's mostly happened in my personal experiences. However, when I'm reading for others, I can tell you the highest probability of what will happen based on where you are at in that moment. Of course, you can make free will. You can make choices and change that outcome. But I have a really high success rate with that, enough to freak people out over the years, several times. Matter of fact, Iris, you and I have had plenty of fun conversations about that.
Yeah, that's true.
See and describe auras, chakra centers, and memories of having light as an adult and other gender. I teach in our Reiki master classes, David and I, my husband, I teach people how to see other people's auras, past lives, and spirit guides in a specific technique called the Gyoshi Ho that I learned from studying the works of William Lee Rand. To give credit where credit is due, William Lee Rand apparently came up with this idea in conjunction with some of his educators and students. But the Gyoshi Ho is published in his works. And I already knew how to do that instinctively, just intuitively. On a day-to-day basis, I can see that around you, around anyone, if I tune into it. But on the Gyoshi Ho, we actually take you through a step-by-step meditation that within anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, you'll start seeing stuff yourself, because humans naturally do this. It just depends on how much practice you have had doing it. So I've always been able to see that. And that was weird as a kid because it was hard to figure out, why are there two different consciousnesses telling me something about this one story? I'm hearing input from two places. And it took me a while to figure out that was that two sources of information or multiple 5, 6 sources of information coming off of one person was normal. Eventually I figured that out. Then I had to figure out that most people didn't see the other second, third, and fourth inputs. They only saw their own. So that I didn't learn until I was about age 8. I got tired of people telling me I was a know-it-all and get out of my head. Matter of fact, I've heard get out of my head all the way to now. I'm 53. Traits of indigos. Do I look 53? No. And I never have. But you know what? When I was 17, 15, I looked like I was 25, 30. Now I'm 53 and I look like I'm, much, I don't know exactly what, but I look much younger than that. So there's an age range I seem to have basically stopped at. And that tends to happen. What are some other stories? Because Iris, I know you've got anecdotes. You're a natural storyteller.
Oh, I don't know. I was going to ask, I know with the auras, or I was just going to comment on the auras.
Mm-hmm.
I have not been that observant of them, but I was in a theta healing class with Vienna Steibel, who created the method, put the method together of theta healing. And somebody was asking about auras, and she slapped her hand onto a whiteboard. She just like put her hand up on a whiteboard, and she said it's usually easier to see against a white background. And she said, now watch. And she went from red to orange to yellow. She went through the rainbows, and she was changing her aura color, and I could see it. It was like, whoa!
Now cool tricks like that are fun to have. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. That's true. The contrast. I think celestial not navigations. That's a really cool narrative song thing that came out of the 90s. If you want to go check it out, you can get them for free. By the way, they're on YouTube, Celestial Navigations. But actually, I'm thinking about Celestine Prophecies. That's it. Remember that movie? Celestine Prophecy?
No.
Oh my gosh, there's like 3 of them, and a lot of people woke up in the early that was like 2003, 4, 5, 6. If any of you guys listening know about Celestine Prophecy, say so in the comments. Celestine Prophecy, they talk about seeing your aura by focusing. Let me get over here on the space between your fingers. Get your fingers really, really, really
I heard that
close, and you can see the slight distortion.
I heard that
you can see the slight distortion, and you can slowly bring it apart. Yeah.
Cool.
And especially do it if you're in an emotionally charged situation. Angela Kopke said she saw it. Absolutely. Now, here's a cool story. Angela Noel says, my 91-year-old grandfather went into a farmhouse when he was a boy and started asking about where pitchers and other small, I would say tchotchke, were because they were missing. He had never been in the house before, but older adults confirmed that those items existed and were in those locations years ago, before he was born. Always a cool story for someone of that age group. Absolutely. Grandpa was remembering a past life in that house. So just to go left field and out on a tangent, some of you are aware of this. Timelines are converging. You'll know what that means soon enough. Basically, everything's returning back to one time spot. But as the dimensions become more and more one, it's going to be more and more likely that you're going to run into yourself in a past life. And that is an example of it. That's why I went down this path. Sorry, it's a little bit abstract, but that Angela Noel's grandfather leaves that gap. He went from one membrane. We've talked about this before, the different membranes that waffle and cross over each other that are different dimensions. Obviously, for Grandpa, a membrane came all the way through and really touched him. So he saw a past life. That's going to get easier and easier for everybody to do over the next 5 to 7 years is the popular rumor. Let's put it that way. I can't guarantee it, but next 5 to 7 years. Kopke said she saw it. Noelle saw it. Said neat. And Kopke said, I think Laurie from The Walking Dead is in it. Okay. So one of the actors that did Walking Dead was also in the Celestine Prophecy movie. And April says hello. Hi, April. Good to see you. So, indigos and crystals, yep, they switch. Indigo can become crystal. And the evidence is that they do get that calmer grace and ease. Their addiction and self-medication issues ease up or sometimes disappear or heal. They still have a mission. They still have a sense of urgency, but they're not so bulldog, hard ass, boom, doom, doom, doom. I'm sorry. Screw you. I'm going to, full speed ahead. A crystal or a Buddha baby or an octarine person is most likely to say, really? Well, I understand how you see it, but this is how I see it. So excuse me, I'm going to go on about my day. And they'll do it. They'll go do it. They'll go save the world. But an indigo is like, really? You're full of shit. I'm doing it my way. Boom. And they'll go do it. And that's kind of the difference between an indigo and a crystal on a day-to-day basis. If you want to learn even more about crystals right away, or not crystals, indigos and crystals, I have a website. It's called indigoanswers.com.
Oh.
Feel free to run that across the screen there, Iris.
Yeah.
And there is a research page. Yeah. There's a research page on there called 100th Monkey. And the story behind that is on that page. You'll find, if you don't know the story of 100th Monkey, and you can learn a lot about indigo parenting.
Is it .net or
.com? Mm-hmm. Okay. .com. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm putting the email back up.
Nope. I don't have a copy. I don't have the copy of the PowerPoint. Oh, that's you.
That's me.
There you go. Oh, you added to it. I see what you did. You added to it. Very cool. So that's another resource you can check out. There's also a resource page that has links to websites and books that are helpful for indigos, parents, crystals, and so on. There's also information on there about what are twin flames, what are soulmates, why do our why do our cats and dogs and our, who are also soulmates, why do they die early? And all kinds of profound stories are on there. So have fun. Have fun with that. Yeah. And feel free at the same time to check out iriscarter.com. Now, she has a lot to offer there. It's a lot of fun. And you can get personal appointments with Iris on her site or with me on my site as needed. So feel free to contact us.
Yeah. And also
Iris.
just want to remind people there, excuse me, that there's a blog, and I've updated up through last week's. I hadn't added last week's podcast, but if you go to my website, you'll see a link to the podcast, the Eyes of Indigo podcast, and there's stories behind things that we told, or maybe I added information or whatever in the blog, but then there's also the audio podcast, which then is shifted to Spotify and iTunes. And of course, you can see our videos on YouTube. If you look up Eyes of Indigo podcast, you'll see all the different links come up in Google. So far, we haven't been banned.
Iris is an excellent writer.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Iris is a very good, Iris is an excellent writer. You will enjoy her commentary on this stuff. It's great.
So, so like, follow, subscribe to all those channels for us. And I guess we should wrap it up because we've gone way over, but we so thank y'all for being with us. Hope it was helpful and informative. And next week, we're going to cover, I wrote it down, I titled it "Forgive and Forget," and then I marked out "forget" and said "Forgive and Remember." We're going to talk about forgiveness, how to do it, how it helps, who's it good and all, who's it good for, and all that stuff. So please join us next week, and y'all take care. Thank you so much.
It'll be fun. Thank you, everyone. Namaste. Bye-bye.
Namaste. And there we go.
Here we go.
Thank you for joining The Eyes of Indigo with Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears. Music is Arcadia by Kevin MacLeod of Incomptech.com, licensed under Creative Commons. Visit our Facebook page for broadcast details, www.facebook.com/eyesofindigo. Show is copyrighted 2021 by Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears, all rights reserved.